We're recording. Hi, my name's Bob Whipple, and I'm also called the Trust Ambassador. I'm here today with Sean Flaherty, who is the Executive Vice President of Innovation for a company called ITX. He's a partner in the firm and has worked there for about 20 years. Sean is an expert on trust and has recently been named for the 2020 list of the top 100 thought leaders in the world on trust by the Trust Across America, Trust Around the World organization. So congratulations for that, Sean.
Thank you,
And
Bob.
we're glad to have you with the organization. Sean has done a lot of work on the genesis of trust and how you develop trust with customers and some of the ways that you can define it and measure it. So we thought just for a few minutes we could share some of the concepts that he works with as he speaks around the country and really around the world with Vistage groups and other groups to help leaders understand this concept of trust. So take it away, Sean.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, so it's been a kind of a lifelong fascination for me. Like in my space, I build software products. So ITX, that's what we do. We build software products. And in reality, a software product that can never be successful if it doesn't earn trust from its users, its consumers. So I figured that out pretty early on, and that's really been the foundation of the work that I've done, is just to figure out. And the cool thing about software is it functions like a laboratory. It's like a little test tube. You can do some things and see the results pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Like, and if we have an objective, so one of the key things that became clear early for me is that you can't measure trust if you don't have an objective measurement system for trust, if you don't even have a way to define it, right? And I realized that if you ask people what trust means to them, it's really highly subjective, right? Mm-hmm. Highly subjective. And if you, in the Vistage talks that I do, I go around the country speaking to CEOs and leaders, key leaders in businesses. And one of the exercises we do, and I've been doing this for years in our workshops as well, is I ask everybody in the room to write their definition of trust on a card, right, on a little piece of paper. And then I have them go around and read them aloud. And I pretty much always get the same results in the room. And that is that everybody has a different definition for the word. We're using it in different ways. Mm-hmm. And the other insight to that is that everybody's definition is not wrong. It's right. Everybody's got a little piece of the truth. And you can't tell somebody their definition of trust is wrong because, you know, it's such a subjective thing, and we're so passionate about it. We make most of our decisions in life on this thing that we call trust. Right? So nobody's is wrong. Everybody's is right. And this is basically the definition of subjectivity. So we can't measure it. In fact, I'm going to share a little word cloud real quick. So this is the result of some research I've done. So I collected all of these definitions of trust from CEOs and key leaders across America in my Vistage travels. And you see the key word here is belief. See that? Mm-hmm. It's a word cloud. So of the hundreds of definitions I've collected in the CEO community, these are the words that are commonly used to describe trust. Here's how we define or describe trust. Confidence is close, interest is close, ability is close. And the cool thing about this word cloud is it shows you that there's not much of a difference in terms of those words, like confidence, interest, belief, ability, in terms of how CEOs and leaders are using the word. But there's a big difference if you go and do a survey of the literature. So I've also gone and surveyed the literature, like all of the dictionaries that I could find in the library, online, even the Urban Dictionary. Okay. With the Urban Dictionary and how people are actually using it in that context. And I get a very different result. A lot of the same words are in there. Most of the same words are in that trust cloud. But it's still very different. And the difference is that in the dictionary, in the authoritative sources, I'll share the slide from my deck here. Confidence is the key word. Uh-huh. It's the difference between the word confidence and all of the other words, the next 5 closest words, is about 3 to 1. It's 3 to 1 with the next 5 to the next 5 closest words that are used to describe trust by all of the dictionaries, Merriam-Webster, Britannica, all the major dictionaries you could think of I've gone through. So this word confidence is the key operating word. So what I've done is I've figured out, like, if we use the word confidence as our operating term, we can operate on that objectively. If we all agree that confidence is something we can earn and call it trust. Won't be perfect, but it's something we could use to create a simple definition. So then I went back to the literature and I found the simplest definition I could find is one in which confidence is placed. And that's in Merriam-Webster. So one in which confidence is placed. And that becomes something we can actually agree on. Yeah, they trust us at least a little bit if they have confidence in us. So I can get leaders in a room to agree that we'll use that definition as our shared objective definition of the word trust. It won't be right, won't be perfect, but at least it will move us in this positive general direction of earning shared trust together and talking about trust in a common way. That makes sense?
Neat. Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we started. And one in which confidence is placed, you can actually, the flip side of that would be, well, how would you observe that someone has confidence in you? And it doesn't take long to come up with the conclusion that you observe someone has confidence in you when they invest in you. But over 20 years, I figured out, like, you have to separate the tactical version of trust, which is really around money, from the strategic version of trust, which is really about the actual incidence of an improvement in the relationship.
Okay.
They're very different things. Mm-hmm. So we're running a business, so we have to make a profit. That's the tactics. But if we convolute trust with the dollars, we end up in a very ugly place and we get distortions occurring.
Yeah, sure.
So I figured out with leaders, if I can convince them of that, then we can say, okay, we're not going to use money as our indication of trust. And I actually have I have a mathematical proof that destroys the use of money as an indicator of trust. But we're not going to do that today because that takes me too long to get through. So let's just take for granted we're not going to use money. Money is, an indicator, but it's not a healthy indicator of trust.
Right. Yep.
So healthy indicators of trust are things like investments like time. They give you time, like their attention.
Right.
Give you information. They tell you things that they don't have to tell you. Or social capital, like they connect you with other people early in the relationship. Mm-hmm. If they're doing that, those are key indications. Those are key investments that they're making. They're investing their social capital by introducing you to other people. They're giving you information that you wouldn't otherwise have and that they don't have to give you. Or they're giving you time, more time than they need to give you to get their to get the solution they came to you for. So when you see those types of investments, you know you've earned some semblance of trust, and we can objectively measure those behaviors.
Makes sense.
That's the foundation of it. Make sense?
Yep, sure does.
Yeah. So, you want to keep going, or?
Well, just give me a little bit more, and then we'll call it a day.
All right. Well,
you have a model that shows how trust is earned with clients or customers.
Yeah. So let me share that. So let's talk about how trust is earned, because it actually kind of describes why you shouldn't use money. I'm going to go back to my deck if you don't mind, and I'll share it in a slideshow format. So starting with this confidence thing, we know we have some trust if we've earned confidence. We know that occurs when they make some investment. So if you think about how trust occurs, and again, I'm not talking about all forms of trust. I'm certainly not talking about our personal relationships in terms of how we personally form trust. Right. What I'm after here in my definition in my work is, how do I know the software product that I'm building is earning trust, or this company is earning trust from its consumers or from its employees, from the people. So the relationship between a company or a firm and the employees that it serves, or the customers the people that it serves. Okay. And in that context, trust works like this. There is no trust until something happens. Agreed? There's no trust if you haven't even heard of a company before. You can't possibly trust it. Mm-hmm. And when you hear of a company, you typically hear of it in one of two ways. Either from some marketing initiative, let's say an advertisement or a trade show or a flyer or a mailing or some sort of a billboard, some sort of marketing initiative, or You hear about a company from what I would call an advocate, which is a referral, right? So somebody says, "Hey, I got a guy. You need a
Yep.
plumber? I got a guy." Or
Yep.
I got a person for you.
Yep.
I know somebody. When you get that kind of first introduction to a firm, that is 100% of the time the most valuable way that you can be introduced to a firm. Nobody disagrees with that. It's hard to disagree with that, right? So those are one of the two ways, either from some marketing activity or from an advocate, which somebody who actually had an experience with your firm and knows people in your firm. And when that first experience happens, it's always a farther journey up the trust curve here that I'm drawing than an advertisement would be, right?
Right.
And you could have a negative experience. So the first experience could be negative. Over time, it won't change though. So you don't have a change in trust after that first experience until there's another experience.
Uh-huh.
Agreed? It's a step function. So it occurs in a step function. And over time, it will atrophy. If they don't hear about you again, there will be some atrophy of trust. But Daniel Kahneman showed us with his research on behavioral economics. He's a Nobel Prize-winning behavioral economics guru, wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow, written a whole bunch of other things. Actually, if you want to read about his work and his life, there's an incredible book written by this guy, Michael Lewis, who wrote the book The Undoing Project. So you have that over here, The Undoing Project by Michael Lewis. It talks about Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman's life. It's just an incredible story. But he proved that, especially early in the relationship, when there's a negative experience, you typically travel much further down than when there's a positive experience. Like, we value loss way more than we value gain. Mm-hmm. And if you think about Las Vegas, the entire city is built on that principle.
Right. You make that point in the article. Yep.
Yeah. So we want to focus on positive experiences. That's how we build businesses. That's obvious, right? So we want to keep moving them up. But the key is, it's a step function. Only when experiences occur do we grow trust.
Right.
If we had a metric that told us, an objective metric that we set with our teams that says, hey, okay, our customers, we're going to now claim that this customer objectively has confidence in us because they've exhibited these behaviors. They've given us time, they've given us information, they've given us social capital, connected us to others. Well, once we see this chart written out in mathematical form, it becomes obvious the next step is to condense the amount of time it takes us to get to that trust threshold, right?
Right.
How would we do that? How would you condense the amount of time it takes to get there? There's only two strategies you could deploy if you look at this chart.
You can have more interfaces, or you can be outstanding when you have an interface.
Exactly. You can insert more experiences. And I build software products. So in our world, when you try to insert more experiences like this, we call that spam. Right?
And you can overdo that. Yeah.
And it's typically what happens is we try, let's just keep pounding them with communications, and eventually they'll call us back. Or you could try to skip steps. You could try to condense it by changing the customer journey. But the reality is that it's their journey. It's not our journey. Like, we want to paint this beautiful picture of the journey our customer goes through to get to this point of sale or point of trust. But the reality is it's their journey. They live busy lives. They have other concerns that are not ours. And it's foolish to think that we can craft a perfect journey for every one of our customers. It's important to look at, and it's important to know, and it's important to try to optimize it. But the better strategy, in my opinion, is what you just said, Bob. It's how do you take each experience and maximize that journey. And a very simple mathematical proof for that is what we talked about earlier. The difference between that first experience coming from an ad versus coming from an advocate. That's a mathematical proof for that. Like, you get a better experience, you move faster up this threshold when you can do that. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. Thanks for sharing the model. I think that's great. Here's Covey. Yeah,
I'm just going to share my favorite quote about trust, that it's pragmatic, it's tangible, it's actionable. We can create it. We just have to choose to. And, Stephen M.R. Covey, he's on that panel with us.
Right.
Trust America, and he's been great to know. Great to get to know.
Oh yeah, he's a wonderful friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that I'm going to put when I put this out, I'll include a reference to the deck that you were showing and also the article so that others can read the whole detail. But I appreciate you spending some time with me, Sean, to describe this and your enthusiasm for it. You certainly have put a lot of time and energy into understanding this phenomenon. And I think you're pushing the state of the art forward by what you're doing. So thanks again. I'm really appreciative.
Thank you for having me, Bob. I appreciate it.